Hello, this is Baron from Ragic speaking. I will present the webinar today and we'll talk about subtables. I will wait for a couple more minutes for people to join because we're starting at 10 a.m. and it's 9:58, so we'll wait for a little more. But if you have any questions during the webinar about the webinar or like totally unrelated, then feel free to ask anything from the chat box on the right side. This is my first time doing YouTube live streaming, so if you can't hear me, if there is a problem with the video or audio, just let me know through there as well. I would be happy to rearrange some things. I hope you can all hear me clearly. I did do a test run right before this morning, and hopefully everything is running alright. So I think there is a slight latency on what you can see and what I'm streaming, like a few seconds. But if you do have questions, I will get to them. I might not reply right after, but the chat box is there, and please feel free to write anything. Alright, so in this webinar, we'll try to fit creating a subtable and then talking about the differences between having a regular subtable and a subtable that we create through link and load, a subtable that is a reference subtable, and creating a new sheet from subtable and how that works. So that should be our entire course, but if you do have specific questions, please feel free to ask them. Again, please do not, hesitate on asking questions because I really do want to answer everyone today. Alright, again, if you have questions, the chat box is right there. If you scroll a little bit down, it's on the right, and I will try to reply as much as possible. I will begin with the webinar now. Alright. So, for those who are new to Ragic, I don't know if you have gone through the process of creating a form yet, but I will quickly go through that. So, when you create a new form in Ragic, it kind of looks like this when you're on the listing page. So, right now I have a new sheet with my projects on it, and these are all my projects in rows. So I have an iOS app project and an automation system project, and when I click on an entry, it goes to the form page. Right now I only have 2 fields, so it looks a little bit small, but that's a form page, and I will create a subtable on here. So what does that mean? Usually a subtable is when I want to create a set of data that is about a certain form. So for example, I have a project named automation system and I want to have more details about that, but I need to have the same type of details. You know what I mean? Like if there are, for example, dates and tasks that I need to keep track of under this one project, then I probably need to create a subtable instead of having like task 1, task 2, task 3. I can have all my tasks under this one project. So let me change the design. So we always change the design from the form page where we can actually add more fields. So if I create tasks, I would like to have them in a more organized way. So I'll create a timestamp for the task ID. So you can kind of make this a default value so that Ragic creates it on its own. And I won't have to really bother creating the task on its own. Well, actually, you can create a default value as a field free text, but I'm going to make it an auto-generated field that has a timestamp. So I'll just pick the date and have a number with it, but I'll call it task. So this will generate a task and then hyphen the date of today, which is 2016 December 14th, and then a number, so 1, 2, 3, according to how many tasks are created that day. For the people who just joined, we do have a chat box below the video. So if you, on the right side, if you have any questions, please let me know and I will try to answer as much as possible. We're creating our first subtable at the moment. So under projects, I'm creating a task. But again, I don't want to have task A, task B, and keep track of them separately. I want them all together, so I'm putting them in a subtable. So the easiest way to create a subtable is, for my related fields, I'm just going to put them side by side. So you know how in Ragic where we have the field header and the field values? This white part is where the field value is going to be in the form page. Here, let me show you. So if I exit to the form page, this is the field header called project name. This is the value automation system. I can basically write anything inside the value and it will keep it in the database. But the field header is a constant, right? So I always have the header there. And if I go and change design, I am going to ignore where the task ID's value usually would be. And I'm going to click here and type a new field name, so task name. And that will create my subtable. As you can see, the white part, which is the value, shifted downwards. So right now it looks like there would be 3 values underneath one task. But right now, since I just created that subtable and it shows up in the form page design mode, I actually don't really have 3 per se, but if I add more tasks as I go, this will expand. So subtables always have more space for you to create new entries, which are like subtable rows in this case. And let's see, what else? We want to assign these to task members in the future, but I will do that in a separate way. So this is a regular subtable when I create new fields next to each other. Let's say status to complete this. This is a selection field, so I want to have options beneath this. So planned, started, complete, or canceled. Alright, so those are my statuses, and let's test this out actually. Let's exit and add a few tasks to the automation system we have. So if we have like planning, and the status is complete, and then drawing diagram, and that's complete too. And the last one is, for example, writing code. We're still working on it, so we'll say started. So as you can see, it just created a new row for me, but that's empty. So whenever I add a new entry, we'll see that the subtable will still have space and it will expand on its own. So I'm going to save this right now, and you can see that my auto-generate didn't fill because it will generate a new task ID for me when I save this. So there we go. As you can see, it's today's date, task, today's date, and 1, 2, 3. All right, any questions so far? For the people who just joined, there's a chat box right below on the right side. This is my first time streaming in YouTube, so I'm still trying to learn the ropes. And if you don't hear me or if there's a problem with the video or audio, just let me know. Okay, so moving on, we have our regular subtable. So this is usually how the subtable is used when you want to have a bunch of data that is about the same thing underneath your your sheet. then you probably need a subtable. So if we go, since I changed the design here on my projects sheet, if I go to my other project, which is the iOS app, then I'll still have the subtable in the design, but of course, since I didn't enter anything here, then it's going to be empty. So if I'm saying like I'm planning the iOS app and it's being planned, and save it, it will generate the next ID over here. So it depends on what you're trying to do. Right now, I have my tasks under the projects and that's okay. So, any questions so far? No? Okay. Moving on, that was a regular subtable, but now I kind of want to assign some people under here that say like they're working on this task, right? For example, if I have different users on my Ragic database, I can kind of add a select user field on here, which is a select user field over here under our field types. So that usually works well, but what if I have a lot of people in my company that aren't really users in my database, or maybe you're the sole user of the database account and you're just trying to keep track of things, then you would not use this. I would really recommend to use, add people as users and basically, it makes things easier because you kind of can notify them within Ragic, and then you can also see if they saw whatever they were assigned to. For example, invite user to review this record is really useful when you add a person and then assign something for them. It also works well for access rates, but if you don't have that, and really I'm the only user in this account right now, so I'm going to delete this. Let's say we had a ton of staff members that I want to, keep track of. So I created another sheet on my database account under the same tab called staff over here and added 3 people. Basically, I kind of want to add them to the tasks over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them as a link and load to the subtable. So a lot of people know what link and load is, but for those who don't, I'll just recap and say, well, link and load is when you want to link data from one sheet to another. You use the intermediary as the key ID of the sheet you're linking from. So the source sheet is going to be the staff sheet, and I want to use their staff ID to link. Now the load part comes in handy when I want to load data from the other sheet, from the source sheet, which is their name. So I will link their ID and then load their name according to the ID. So we're going back to change design, and from sheet linking tools, I'll click link and load. So a lot of people don't know they can link and load as a subtable, which is, possible. I'll just create the ID and first name side by side, just like we did on here when we created the regular subtable. You can just add to an existing subtable or create your own. I'm just going to add to this existing subtable because I'm assigning these people to the tasks. So I'll just add the ID and first name, and you can see that the first thing I clicked was the ID. So the one on the right is always the source sheet, and I linked to my task subtable over here, and I will be loading the first name with the ID number. So whenever I select an ID number, the first name is going to be loaded from my source sheet. So I'll make an example here. If I select Jimmy, then his first name is also going to be populated. If I write in it, I'm just typing in this field. So if I select number 1, Sarah is drew the diagram and it's complete. So now I will assign this to Buzz and he's writing the code. So that's how you link a node into an existing subtable. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Well, I think that might be a little more advanced, but once you get the hang of it, I will show that one more time in a kind of product setting. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple. Okay. So once we have the subtable, it's a little bit hard to go back and forth to each project to see what tasks are being worked on and what the status is. Like so. Let's assign this to someone as well. Okay. So yeah, like for example, someone might update the iOS app to the next task and I might not know if I don't, click into the project itself. So I kind of want to generate a new sheet from this subtable that will collect all the data from each project. To do that, I'll click Change Design here and go to the form page. It doesn't really matter where you generate it from, but usually seeing it here would be better. And I'll create new sheet from subtable. So this is allowing me to select a project ID and that will also be in my new sheet. And basically the new sheet will be entries of whatever you wrote into that subtable. And I want to call it tasks. Okay, so that data is automatically, being taken from the subtable and put here. So since they're linked to each other with a project ID, with this method, I can actually create a new entry here. So if I wanted to create a new task for the iOS app, saying like, writing code or change anything on here, saying like, for example, this status was complete. I can do it from this new sheet where I can see all my tasks. And if I go back to my projects, you can see that the status I just updated and the new task I added are also displayed on here. So this is more of a direct link where I can, update or edit anything through either of these sheets. So if I edit something under the subtable over here on my tasks sheet, that will also be complete. Any questions so far? No? Alright. Moving on. So that was creating a new sheet from our subtable. Now to go to reference subtables, I will kind of explain that in a different way. Not in the project context, but I hope everything is clear. Alright, so I'll create a new tab. So the tabs, I always get asked this question. Tabs are only folders to keep your sheets in. I like to have quite a few tabs to kind of separate my sheets, kind of like folders in your computer. So I will create a new sheet called products under my sales tab. Okay. I think I had created that tab name before, so let me delete that. Create a new tab, code sale. There we go. Okay, so I'll create a very simple product sheet and call it like product ID. People who do sales, this can be your, if you do have, you know, codes like UPC codes or, you know, SKUs, then you can add that to identify your records. We always like to have a ID that is unique to your one record so that it will identify your records from each other, especially when you're linking things to each other. It's easier. But I'll let Ragic generate one for my product because I don't really have actual products. Alright, so this is a very simple sheet, and I'll save the products, and actually save a couple of products under here. So which we sell? A mug, blue, a blue mug, and it can be $6.25, and let's save that, and let's create another mug that is festive. Happy holidays, by the way. And make it $7.25. Okay, so we have a couple products here, and we kind of want to add them to a sales order. So usually, what you do have on a sales order sheet is the customer info, right? So I'm just going to create a quick customer sheet and have their customer ID. So you can see the pattern, right? I always have an ID and use it in my sheets. First name, last name, perhaps their phone number, and city. Okay, we don't really need all that information, but some people do. This I already generated an ID for. Okay, let's create John Doe, and his phone number can be random. And then he might be living in New York City. Okay, so that's my customer sheet. And if I want to create a sales order sheet, I would like to have that customer order multiple products, right? Best case scenario. I mean, of course people buy one thing, but then their invoice or receipt shows one thing. If they buy multiple, then it shows multiple. So I'll have a sales order ID first. First things first. And add SO. And perhaps this can also be the date and timestamp. I'll just change the P to S over here. Alright, so let's also add a timestamp. Default value is create date time maybe, and then the formatting can be date and time. Okay, actually this one I like better. Alright, so we set the formatting, and again I'm going to do a link and load. So this is a regular link and load. I'm not going to do this in a subtable because I want each customer to have only, like each sales order to have only one customer. Is that clear? Okay, so the first thing I'm selecting is customer ID, and you can see that the link is blue. So this is a regular link and load. I'm not going to do this in a subtable. I want to load their first name, last name, and the phone number, and city. So everything on that sheet I want to see on my sales order. Alright, so that's linked, and as you can see, the blue link is my linked field, so the customer ID will be selected, and the customer first name, last name, phone number, and city are going to be loaded from my source sheet, which is the customers. Alright? Alright, so I'll exit the link manager here and save. Okay, next up I want to link my products from my product sheet, right? So this time I'm going to link those as a subtable because I want to have several products on my sales order, and I would like to get that info from somewhere else, which is my product sheet, and I will do that with link and load. Again, we click on the link and load and click on products this time, and I will link the product ID to load the product name and price. So it's similar to how we created the subtable on the first sheet when we were doing a regular subtable. I am going to ignore where the value would normally be, which is the white part, and link it directly next to my other field header that is going to be the linked field. And you can see that the value shifted downwards, and I can select multiple products and load their name and price. Okay, let's save that and test it out. Okay, so my sales order is for John Doe, and you can see that these both are generated automatically when I'm creating a new record. So John Doe, I just selected his customer ID and his info filled up from my source sheet, which is the customer sheet. And this time I'm going to select a product ID, and the product name and price is going to be filled up from the other sheet. So Mug Blue and Mug Festive is going to be purchased by John Doe. So what I'm missing here is the quantity of the mugs he's purchasing, and I need a few more calculations for the totals. So I'll go in and change design. So even though these were created by link and load, that's my subtable on this sheet for the sales order. So I can just add new fields on here and reference to the subtable fields to calculate my totals. So quantity, this can be item price, and you can feel free to change the fields names that you're linking. It doesn't really matter. The link won't be broken, but you can just change the name to whatever you'd like. And the quantity is a format that's 1 digit. And subtotal, which is a monetary field, and I don't want the extra zeros here, so I'm deleting this. And grand total. So you can just add your tax calculations if you have them. I'm not gonna bother on this one, but the way we do references to subtable fields when calculating things in formulas is we always look at the field header, even in normal calculations as well. So the reason to do this is easier explained in subtables because I can have like 10 products that John is buying, right? So I kind of want to look at the field header because this is going to be expanding and I don't want to write the formula multiple times. For the subtable, I need to say item price times quantity is the subtotal for this item. And for the grand total, it's going to be the total of all the subtotals on E10. So I'm referencing to the field header. On the subtotal, I'm writing the formula C10, which is my item price, times D10, which is the quantity. Alright, I hope that's clear. For the people who just joined, we have a chat box below the video on the right side, so you can write anything, any questions over there, and I'll try replying as soon as possible. Okay, so for the subtotals total, which is the grand total, I just need to reference to E10. That's a special quirk on having subtables. if I want a total of one subtable field, I just need to write the ID for the field header. Alright, I'll save that. I'll test it out right away. Let's say John is buying 2 blue mugs and 5 festive mugs. And you can see that the grand total is calculated. 6.25 times 2 is 12.5. And 5 of these mugs are going to be $36. And then the total of that is going to be $48.75. I hope that's clear. Alright, let's save that. So that's how you do a subtable from link and load, and then I just added a couple more fields for that for my calculations. Alright, so the last point of today is going to be the reference subtable. A reference subtable is another type of linking that you can use in Ragic, and it's mostly for view only. It's mostly to refer back to a field that you had connected. For example, on our case, we have already connected John Doe with link and load, and I kind of want John Doe's account to show his past sales orders. So this is mostly a view only use, and I want to keep that data for reference. It's not that I'm going to add new sales orders from there, but I want to kind of see John's previous sales orders, right? So I'll go back to my customer sheet, and again, you need a link and load field to kind of have that link to refer back to, and we already did that. So let's go to our customer sheet. And if we click change design, this is pretty simple, it's pretty automatic. So if we click show references from existing sheets, it's going to acknowledge that my sales orders has a link for John or any other customer for that matter, and add that subtable. So the fields that I want is the sales order ID, the time, the customer first name, last name, and whatnot are already like here, so I don't need those. And I want the grand total of that sale. So I'll save that, and this data is populated automatically. It doesn't really, you don't really need to do any setup for this. Okay, it's taking a little time to save for some reason. Oh, there you go. So it added my subtable over here. This is again a reference subtable on sheet linking. And if we exit from there, we'll see the previous sales of John Doe. Again, I stress that this is a view only use for the subtable, and I don't really have much of a different use for that unless I want to like hover on this and see the sale details over here. And you can actually go to that record by clicking on the link over here. So if I wanted to, I can go back to that sales order. Okay? Any questions so far? No? Alright, we covered most of what subtables do with formulas. And again, we always refer to the field headers during calculations, even if it's a subtable. So that's the main difference between reference subtables and creating a new sheet from subtables. Some people ask me why they're separate. The main difference is when you create a new sheet from a subtable, you can enter entries through the new sheet or the subtable that was the original source. It's actually a pretty direct link. For the reference subtable, when you create a reference subtable like we did on the customer's sheet over here to show someone's previous sales orders, you can't really create a new sales order from the subtable. You can only view. So that's the main difference. If I created a new sales order for this guy, John Doe, which is my customer number one, let's say he bought like 12 more mugs, and let's save that. We can go to his customer sheet, and then it will show up under here saying that he had a sales order of $87. Okay. Alright, so that's the end of my course material. If you have any questions or specific cases you want to build with me, then please scroll down a little bit and there's a chat box on the bottom of your screen, or if you're using a small windowed YouTube, then it should be on the right side. So I'll write something on the chat box. It can be related or unrelated to our subtables because we do have time. Alright, I just wrote a message on our chat box and I'm waiting for your questions. Please don't hesitate to ask anything, especially if you're a new user. I know that Ragic has a slightly, steep learning curve, and it is quite easy when you figure everything out, but when you're new to Ragic, then a lot of linking types might be intimidating, and choosing the right one for your specific case might be hard to plan if you don't know what they're about. So feel free to describe what you do in your business and what you're trying to do, what you've done so far, if any, and whatnot. In a lot of cases, people ask me why is there one empty row in the bottom of my subtable. And the reason for that is that it kind of shows you there's more space over there. So if I go to projects, for example, and create a task over here, for example, writing code, after writing code, posting to you always have an extra field that's empty. It's actually, a blank record over there to show you that you can just double click and write a new thing, create a new entry. Example, approval from the App Store. So let's say this was complete. This is started by user 3 again. It's a one-man project. And you can see that you always have a new entry over there. So I also got this question asking How do I create a new entry in a subtable? You just double click and start typing. So let's say this was complete. Sorry, this was complete, and it's online now. And there you go. That's how you create a new row on your subtable. And this, again, as I generated a sheet from this subtable, it is the tasks. And my entries in the subtable are recorded here as well that I just made. Oh, and I almost forgot, actually. So if we go to the projects, and let's go to automation system this time. If you want to filter your subtable or search in your subtable, let's say I have thousands of records in this one subtable, and I want to search for started tasks, I can do that by going to the field header. So my status, I want to search for started, right? If I click on the arrow there, I can see all my options because this was a selection field I created, with a drop down with options. So if I click on started, it will filter for started, and I'll see a filter icon over here instead of the arrow. And if I clear that filter, I'll see all tasks again. So you can kind of filter and sort your subtables like you would do in the listing page. The listing page also works similarly. You can filter through the field headers and the search bar and the left sidebar over here, which are another story, but you can filter the subtable records if you need to, or sort them. For example, if I want to look at the started first, I would sort descending because it's alphabetical. Or if I kind of want to look at, if you want to clear the sorting, just go to the drop down again and clear sorting, which will clear the entire thing. If I wanted to look at Buzz's tasks, I can filter by his name and then submit, and his tasks will show up. So I can clear that filter as well. But that's mostly useful if you have too many entries. Again, as this is this subtable is like, I created a new sheet from that subtable so I can filter through tasks. For example, if I wanted to see Buzz's entries, I'll just filter Buzz through here, and I'll see all his tasks on all projects. So that's also a possibility. We got a question on our chat. Alex is asking, how can you create a time-based product that would reference a price sheet table for each amount of hours? Time-based product. Okay, so you have a service, right? And it's based on time? Is that what you mean? Service, and you charge, your customers according to how many hours, right? Okay, great. So let's create a services sheet under sales. So let's say service ID and hourly fee. We of course need the service name. It's really similar to what we just did on the sales orders over here, so I'm going to build a very similar thing. So for service ID, I will create a service number, and the service name is free text, and the hourly fee is a monetary field. So let's say we have a cleaning service, and the hourly fee is $60. And let's say we have a moving service, which has a $90 hourly fee. We have a coding service. I'm just making things up. I hope that's alright. Which has a $150 amount for the hourly fee. So that's our price sheet that you talked about that has an hourly fee. And we kind of want to make a similar sales order sheet that we created over here so that we can charge people correctly. So service order, let's say. I don't know what else to call it. I'll just make something up. So I'll create a service order ID and it will be auto-generated. And do you want to well, let's make it the complicated way. There are some easy ways, like you can just input the number of hours worked manually, or we can create a start time and end time and calculate the hours in between, which I'm going to do. Okay, Alex is saying his issue is, or her, my issue is it wouldn't be as simple as an hourly fee. It would be one price for 1 hour, a different price for 2 hours, different price for 3 hours, etc., etc. Well, that is entirely possible. I mean, if you have different discount rates for the amount of hours that can be that can help, or if you have like different people working on different services, then that would also change the price, right? So I'll link the customers first and then we'll talk about that. So similar to what we just did, customer ID, first name, last name, and city. Okay, I'll save this first and then we'll get to your question. So if we go back to our services, you can either have like okay, so there are different ways of doing this. I usually know that a lot of people have a base discount rate as a percentage according on how many hours worked. It might not necessarily be your case, but I'll show how to do that as well. So discount. Okay, so this you can enter manually as well, but discount rate can be a percentage as well. So it depends on what you're doing. Let's see. I can enter different discount rates for different hours, but that's a hassle, so I'm not going to do that. But if I go to my service order and link that, yeah, let's link the services first. If I had a discount based on the number of hours worked, started, ended, number of hours, or hours worked. So let's say we do the complicated way and kind of have a start hour and end hour. And I kind of want to calculate numerical amount of hours worked, which is E8 minus D8, which will give me the days, I think. Let's try this. So let's see if John Doe had ordered coding services and we started on 10 a.m. today and then ended at 12 a.m. today. Yeah, it's gonna calculate days, so I kind of want to divide this by 24. No? Number of hours. I usually did this with hour, minute, and hour, minute, I think. Then this worked. E8 minus D8. Let's try recalculating this again. That's minutes, so I need to divide this by 60. There we go. Okay, so that's the complicated way. And okay, so we have 2 hours worked on a job. So I can do this in a few ways. We do have a formula that we can calculate a discount rate for if you have them fixed. If you don't, you can add those discount rates for different services as well. So I will create a new field that is numerical. So basically this formula is going to calculate my discount rate. This is actually a measure field because I'm gonna, okay, actually, yeah, okay. So let's say that I have a 5% discount if it was 2 hours. Let me write this down on paper. So I have a 5% discount rate if it were 2 hours. If it was between 2 hours and 4 hours. And then if it was more than 10 hours, sorry, between 4 hours and 10 hours, we have a 10% discount. And after 11 hours, after 10 hours, it would be a 15% discount. Okay, so I'll actually write this down here. So a 5% discount if we're between 2 and 4, a 10% discount if we're between 4 and 10, squiggly line, 10, and then a 15% discount if it was, sorry, 10 hours or more, okay? So no discount between, no discount for less than 2 hours. So if you have something fixed like that, right, for all the different services, you can do what I'm doing now. If not, please let me know what you're doing. So I'm gonna refer to our formulas guide for this. So we have a conditional formula that is for this use. It's a lookup. So because this is numerical, so I can like use the lookup formula. So if I were to have, so lookup, if the hours worked, which is F7, is between 0 to 4 and 10, right? Well, actually, we don't really have to write the 0 here. 2, 4, and 10 for my different discount rates. I would need to give the result of so I need to kind of calculate the discount based on the hourly fee. Hourly fee times hours worked. So that was total without discount, right? So that is a monetary field as well. We take that, and the formula for that is F7 times, actually I'll do that, hourly fee, which is C7 times F7, right? C7 hourly fee times F7. Okay. Are we doing that? No, C8 times F8. Okay, now that is correct. So I want the discount here. Sorry. The total without discount is this. The discount should be okay. So if F7, the hours worked, are 2, 4, and 10, we want to calculate the result based on the total without discount times the discount amount, right? So G8 times so we want the 95% of this. Oh, before 0 it's 0, right? Well, actually I'll just add 0 here to be safe. So between 0 and 2, the result would be 0. After 2, between 2 and 4, it's going to be G8 times, I hope I'm doing this right, times 0.95, right? Because we have a 5% discount. Yes. Okay. And then let's just add 0 here, just to be safe. G8 times 0.90, if we have a 10% discount, G8 times 0.85, right? Yeah. $85. And this wasn't F7, it's F8. Alright, save. So this is the fixed rate of my discounts. If you don't really have fixed rates for discounts, then this is not the good way to do that. but in my way it's fixed. So this would be calculated automatically. So normally if we had 2 hours worked, then it should be a 5% discount. Is that right? So 5%, $15. That should be right. Let's, yeah, can't do math from head. 300 times 0.95. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so if, for example, we had moving services and we started at 8 a.m. and it ended at 8 p.m., then it's a 12-hour thing. So it's going to be a 15% discount. So let's see if that's correct. Clear all. 180 times 0.85, 918. So that's working correctly. I hope that answers your question. If not, you can clarify further. We don't really have much time left, but I'd be happy to answer. This is actually the discounted price, not the discount itself, to clarify, because I have the discount rates inside the formula, not like here. There you go. So again, the formula I used was the lookup function. That only used for numerical values for the lookup list you want, because it wants to kind of look at the range in the array. So you probably need to use lookup for numerical values. If not, you can always write a nested conditional formula with the if function. For different prices. For example, some people like to reference to a string field saying, is this a VIP member, yes or no? And they kind of do calculations based on that. And usually if is better for that type of calculation, but in your case, I think if it's a fixed discount rate for the amount of hours worked, then you can use the lookup function. If you have different types of calculations for different type of services, then I would advise you to have the discount rates on the services sheet. Then you can kind of link according to what type of service they're asking for. Okay, I hope that clarifies it, Alex. If not, then because we are out of time, you can email support@ragic.com and we can help you out with your specific case, okay? So this video is going to be available on our YouTube channel right after the webinar, after it's processed. And well, please, if you need to reference to it, you can go back on our YouTube channel and look for the video. Again, our email address is support@ragic.com. I'll write it here. And thank you so much for joining us for our first YouTube webinar. I really enjoyed presenting, and I do hope to see you all again on the next webinar on the 21st. And that is really a different case. This one I had material to present. The new webinar on the 21st will go directly with user questions. So it's more of a Q&A and build together type of webinar. And it's going to be in the same place, and I will email all of you about it. Alright, thank you so much for joining. I will now end this webinar and hopefully see you all again on the 21st. Bye.